Lady Thea Ravensmere crossed the ballroom in the middle of her father's speech and placed a broken brass cog into the hand of a woman no one had invited. The 9-year-old girl said only 6 words. "My mother told me to find you." Every whisper beneath the painted ceiling stopped. Elara Finch stared down at the object in her palm. It was no larger than a coin, but she recognized the unusual shape immediately. One side had been filed into 7 narrow teeth, the other bore the image of a tiny star. Her father had designed it. Across the ballroom, the Duke of Ravensmere lowered his glass. Until that moment, the evening had been proceeding exactly as Cassian Ravensmere had commanded. The musicians had played at the correct volume. The servants had moved with measured precision. Nearly 200 guests had gathered inside Starling Hall to celebrate Thea's 9th birthday and the unveiling of the Duke's newly restored celestial ballroom. The marble beneath their feet had been inlaid with silver constellations. At midnight, a hidden mechanism would rotate sections of the floor, making the stars appear to move beneath the dancers. It was the wonder of northern England. It had also been Elara's father's final creation, and now a piece of its machinery rested in her hand. Cassian descended from the raised platform. "Thea," he said, "come here." His daughter remained beside Elara. The Duke's expression darkened. He was tall, severe, and dressed entirely in black, except for the silver raven embroidered over his heart. Since the death of his wife 6 years earlier, he had developed a reputation for allowing no disorder inside Starling Hall. Yet disorder had just entered wearing a simple ivory gown. Elara had received no formal invitation. That much was true. But 3 days earlier, a narrow wooden box had been left outside her cottage. Inside it, she had discovered a pair of silver dancing slippers belonging to the late Duchess Helena Ravensmere. Beneath the slippers had been a message. "Come to Thea's birthday ball. Stand beneath the northern window. Wait for the child." No signature had appeared beneath the words. None had been necessary. Elara had recognized the handwriting. She had once copied Helena Ravensmere's letters until she knew every curve of her pen. Before becoming a duchess, Helena had been Elara's closest friend. Before Elara's family was ruined, they had once planned to travel beyond England together. But friendship had not survived scandal. Neither had Elara's father. "Lady Thea," Cassian repeated, "you will come away from her." The girl looked up at him. "But Papa, she is Elara Finch. I know who she is." A murmur travelled through the guests. The name Finch had not been spoken openly inside Starling Hall for 11 years. Elara's father, Gideon Finch, had been the engineer responsible for rebuilding the western wing and constructing the celestial ballroom. Weeks before the work was completed, a large sum had disappeared from the estate accounts. Documents bearing Gideon's signature proved he had taken it. Cassian's father dismissed him publicly. Gideon Finch died 2 years later, insisting he had been framed. Cassian stopped several feet from Elara. "You should not be here. I received a message directing me to this room." "From whom?" Elara glanced at Thea. "I do not know. That is not an answer. It is the only truthful one I possess." A woman in a ruby gown stepped forward from the crowd. Lady Marcella Vane was the Duke's widowed cousin and had managed Starling Hall since Helena's death. Her beauty was sharpened by the calmness with which she studied Elara. "Perhaps Miss Finch would explain why your daughter knows her name," Marcella said. Cassian looked down at Thea. "How did you know this woman?" Thea pointed toward the brass cog. "There was a note with it." "What note?" "It was under my pillow." The Duke's face changed. Thea continued. "It said I must give the broken star to Elara Finch before the floor began to turn." Marcella placed a hand against her chest. "Someone entered the child's chamber." "No one entered," Cassian said. "The note did," Thea replied. Some guests laughed nervously. Cassian did not. "Where is it?" Thea reached into the pocket of her white dress and handed him a folded scrap of paper. Cassian opened it. The handwriting made his fingers tighten. Elara saw his reaction. "You recognize it." He folded the note before she could read it. No, you do. You entered this house using my wife's belongings, and now my daughter carries a message bearing handwriting you wish me to believe is Helena's. I did not give her that message. Then why are you here? Ilara removed the silver slippers from the small cloth bag hanging from her wrist. Several older guests gasped. Cassian stared at them. Helena had worn those slippers during the first ball held after their marriage. They had vanished shortly after her death. Those belong to my family, he said. They were delivered to me. By whom? I never saw the messenger. Marcella stepped closer. How convenient. Ilara ignored her and turned the cog beneath the chandelier light. A thin scrape ran across its center. The edge was coated with fresh black grease. It had not been removed years ago. It had come out of the machinery recently. When was the ballroom mechanism last inspected? Ilara asked. Cassian's eyes narrowed. You are in no position to question me. Answer her, Papa, Thea said. The mechanism was inspected yesterday. By whom? Ilara asked. The estate engineer. Did he dismantle the central locking wheel? No. Then he could not have inspected it properly. Marcella gave a quiet laugh. Miss Finch enters uninvited, frightens a child, and now insults the Duke's employees. Ilara held up the broken cog. This is not decorative. It controls one of the floor's locking arms. The guests nearest her glanced uneasily at the silver stars beneath their shoes. Cassian remained unmoved. The ballroom has functioned without incident. Has it been turned since this piece was removed? The demonstration begins at midnight. Then cancel it. The musicians stopped playing entirely. Marcella's expression hardened. You cannot expect His Grace to abandon the centerpiece of his daughter's celebration because you are holding an old fragment of metal. It is not old. Ilara rubbed the black grease between her fingers. This was removed within the last day. Cassian took the cog from her. You expect me to accept the judgment of Gideon Finch's daughter. My father created this room. Your father stole from this family. My father was accused by men who required someone else to carry their guilt. You will not reopen that matter tonight. Then at least examine the mechanism. I will not allow you to use my daughter's birthday to restore your family's name. This is not about my name. It has always been about your name. The words were quiet, but the bitterness beneath them reached every guest. Ilara looked at the man Helena had once described as kind, thoughtful, and painfully loyal. She found little evidence of that man before her. Someone sent me here because they knew that cog mattered, Ilara said. Someone entered your daughter's chamber and placed it beneath her pillow. Should that not concern you more than my surname? Marcella moved beside Cassian. It concerns us that Miss Finch knows so much about an object supposedly discovered only moments ago. Ilara faced her. I know because I spent my childhood watching my father shape every piece by hand. And perhaps you removed it yourself. The accusation drew another murmur from the guests. Thea shook her head. She did not. Marcella bent toward her. My dear, you cannot know that. Yes, I can. The Silver Lady gave it to me. The room fell silent again. Cassian crouched before his daughter. What Silver Lady? The woman who comes to the schoolroom. There is no woman in the schoolroom. She comes when everyone is asleep. Marcella's smile disappeared. Thea pointed toward the portrait gallery. She wears Mama's necklace. Cassian stood abruptly. You have been dreaming. I was awake. That is enough. But Papa, Mrs. Alden will take you upstairs. A governess came forward, but Thea stepped behind Ilara. Do not let the stars move, the girl whispered. Cassian reached for his daughter. Ilara stepped between them without thinking. The Duke's voice became dangerously calm. Move aside. She is frightened. She is my child. And she is trying to warn you. After you filled her mind with tales about hidden women, I met her tonight. You entered my home carrying stolen possessions and a piece of machinery from beneath my ballroom. You know I did not bring the cog. I know only that trouble followed you through my doors exactly as it followed your father. Ilara's face went still. Gideon Finch built the floor beneath your feet. Perhaps you should show his work more respect. Cassian turned toward 2 footmen. Escort Miss Finch from Starling Hall. Thea grabbed Ilara's hand. No, Thea, you cannot send her away. She was never invited. Mama invited her. Cassian flinched. Marcella quickly took the child by the shoulders. Come, darling. Ilara lowered herself before Thea. Listen to me. Stay away from the silver stars in the center of the room. But you are supposed to find what is beneath the northern star. Ilara froze. What did you say? The lady told me. Cassian stepped forward. Remove her now. The footmen guided Ilara through the crowd. Guests moved aside, their faces bright with curiosity. Some remembered her father. Others had only heard the scandal repeated by their parents. Ilara looked back once. Thea was struggling against Marcella's grip. Cassian stood beside them, holding the broken cog. Above his head, the great clock showed 11:47, 13 minutes before the celestial floor was scheduled to turn. The ballroom doors closed behind Ilara. The footman escorted her through the entrance hall and onto the front steps. Cold wind swept across the courtyard. You should leave, one of the men said. My carriage is at the southern gate. Then I suggest you find it. They returned inside. Ilara descended the steps, but she did not walk toward the gate. Instead, she stared through the ballroom's tall windows. The silver constellations beneath the dancers were visible from outside. Her father had designed the floor in 12 sections. Each section rotated around a central platform representing the northern star. The missing cog controlled the platform's support lock. Without it, the center might not remain level when the outer circles began moving. Ilara pressed her palm against the window. The musicians had resumed. Guests were returning to the floor. Cassian clearly had no intention of cancelling the demonstration. Then Ilara noticed something else. A servant beneath the musicians' gallery had pulled the ceremonial lever. The demonstration was beginning early. Inside, silver lines shifted beneath the dancers. The constellations began to move. Ilara searched for Thea. The child was no longer beside her father. She was walking toward the northern star. A woman in silver stood on the opposite side of the ballroom, beckoning to her. Ilara struck the window. No one heard her. The silver woman stepped behind a curtain. Thea followed. At that moment, the center of the floor tilted. Glasses toppled from nearby tables. Guests stumbled as the ballroom mechanism groaned beneath them. A narrow gap appeared around the northern star. Thea's foot slipped into it. Ilara ran. She did not return through the main entrance. She followed the outside wall until she found a narrow maintenance door hidden behind sculpted hedges. Her father had once shown it to her. The door was locked. Ilara removed one of Helena's silver slippers and snapped the decorative buckle from its front. The buckle concealed a thin metal key. So that was why the slippers had been sent. She unlocked the door. Beyond it, a passage led beneath the ballroom. Massive wheels turned in the darkness. Iron arms shifted overhead. Dust fell as the damaged central support strained beneath the weight of the dancers. Above her, someone screamed. Thea! Ilara climbed the maintenance ladder. She pushed open a concealed panel at the edge of the northern star and emerged into chaos. The ballroom floor had stopped at an angle. Guests clung to pillars and tables. At the center, Thea hung from the edge of the tilted platform, her fingers slipping across the polished marble. Cassian was forcing his way through the crowd. Thea! He could not reach her. The gap widened. Ilara dropped to her knees and slid across the slanted floor. Thea's hand disappeared. Ilara caught her wrist. The child's weight nearly pulled her into the darkness beneath the platform. Cassian reached them and seized Ilara around the waist. Together, they dragged Thea onto the stable section of floor. The child collapsed against her father. For several seconds, Cassian could do nothing except hold her. Then he looked at Ilara. She was breathing hard, one sleeve torn, black grease streaked across her gown. "You knew," he said. "I warned you." Before Cassian could answer, Thea opened her hand. She was holding a small silver necklace. A miniature portrait hung from it. The woman painted inside was not Helena Ravensmere. It was Lady Marcella Vane. Thea pointed toward the northern curtain. She was the Silver Lady. Every face turned toward Marcella. But the Duke's cousin had disappeared. And beneath the miniature portrait, engraved in letters so small that Ilara almost missed them, were the words, "Gideon Finch did not steal the money. He discovered where it went." Before we continue, please subscribe to Nightfall Tales and like the video, as your support encourages us to keep creating quality content. Lady Marcella Vane had vanished from a ballroom with only 2 exits. One was guarded by the Duke's servants, the other had been sealed for 6 years. Yet when Cassian ordered every door closed, his cousin was nowhere inside Starling Hall. The orchestra remained silent. Guests stood in uneasy clusters around the damaged celestial floor, while servants helped them onto the stable marble bordering the room. At the center, Cassian still held Thea against his chest. His daughter had stopped crying, but she refused to release Ilara's sleeve. Ilara watched the Duke study the miniature portrait recovered from Thea's hand. Lady Marcella's painted face smiled from within the silver frame. Beneath it, the engraved message appeared impossible to misunderstand. Gideon Finch did not steal the money. He discovered where it went. Cassian closed the miniature. "Where did you find this?" he asked Thea. "The Silver Lady dropped it." "You said the Silver Lady was Marcella." Thea nodded. "She wore a veil, but I saw her face when the floor moved." "Why did you follow her?" "She said Mama had left something for me beneath the northern star." Cassian looked toward the broken platform. Ilara had already understood what his expression meant. Someone had deliberately drawn Thea onto the weakest section of the floor. Someone who knew the child would follow any promise connected to her mother. "Ilara warned you," Thea whispered. Cassian's jaw tightened. This time, he did not correct his daughter for using Ilara's name. He turned to the gathered servants. "Search every chamber, staircase and passage. No one leaves the estate until Lady Marcella is found." A nervous murmur passed through the guests. Lord Emmett Sallow, an elderly magistrate and one of the Duke's closest advisers, stepped forward. "Your Grace, detaining 200 people may create unnecessary scandal. My daughter was nearly dragged beneath this floor." And Miss Finch conveniently appeared from below it. Ilara turned toward him. "Are you suggesting I caused the failure?" "I am suggesting that a disgraced engineer's daughter knew exactly where to enter, exactly when the mechanism would break, and exactly where the child would fall." The accusation settled heavily over the room. Several guests stepped away from Ilara. Cassian said nothing. That silence wounded her more than Lord Sallow's words. She looked at the Duke. "You still suspect me?" "I do not yet know what to believe." "You watched me risk my life for your daughter. I also watched you unlock a passage no member of my household knew existed. My father built this room, and apparently filled it with hidden doors. He built them because every large mechanical structure requires maintenance." Lord Sallow lifted his chin. "Or because Gideon Finch intended to enter the estate unseen." Ilara took a step toward him. "My father was not a thief. Your devotion does not make him innocent, and your title does not make you truthful." A shocked silence followed. Lord Sallow's face reddened. Cassian raised one hand before the older man could reply. "That is enough." He handed Thea to her governess, Mrs. Alden. "Take her to my study. Remain there until I come." "No," Thea said. "Thea, I want Ilara with me." "That is not possible." The child tightened her grip on Ilara's sleeve. "The Silver Lady said you would send her away again." Cassian's expression shifted. "What else did she say?" that you always choose the wrong person." The words reached deeper than a child could have known. For a moment, Cassian seemed unable to answer. Ilara knelt before Thea. "I need to look beneath the floor and find out why it failed. You will be safer with Mrs. Alden." "Will you leave?" "Not until we know the truth." Cassian looked at her sharply. He had not given permission for her to remain. But after what had happened, ordering her out a second time would make him appear either foolish or cruel. He turned to the servants. "Clear the ballroom." Lord Sallow objected again. "Your Grace, every guest will be given a chamber or escorted to the eastern drawing rooms. No carriages depart. No messages leave the estate." Lord Sallow's concern sharpened. "You cannot mean to imprison the entire county. I mean to discover who endangered my daughter." The magistrate lowered his voice. "You must consider the family name." Cassian stared at him. "My family name was beneath that floor." Lord Sallow said nothing more. Within minutes, the ballroom began to empty. Ilara watched the guests depart, but she searched only for Marcella. The woman in the ruby gown was gone. So was the silver cloak Thea claimed she had worn. When the last guest had been escorted away, Cassian approached Ilara. "You said the central platform should have remained locked." "It should have. Could removing the brass cog cause this?" "Not alone." She walked carefully toward the northern star. The missing cog weakened the locking arm, but someone also started the mechanism before midnight. The demonstration was ordered for 12. It began at 11:52. Cassian glanced toward the ceremonial lever beneath the musicians' gallery. A young footman stood beside it, pale and trembling. "Who told you to pull it?" Cassian asked. "Lady Marcella, Your Grace." "When?" "Shortly before Miss Finch was removed. She said you wanted the display to begin early because Lady Thea was tired." Cassian's expression hardened. "And you did not confirm the order?" "She carried your signet." "My signet is on my hand." The footman swallowed. "She showed me a written order with your seal." "Find it." The young man searched his coat and produced a folded paper. Cassian examined the mark pressed into the red wax. It appeared identical to the raven seal on his ring. Ilara noticed something else. "The wax is not red." Cassian looked at her. "It is clearly red." "Hold it beneath the chandelier." He did. The color changed. Under direct light, the seal was dark purple. Ilara touched its edge. "My father used this wax when marking machine plans." "It contains powdered violet stone." "What does that prove?" "That whoever forged your seal had access to his old workshop." Cassian's gaze moved toward the western side of the estate. The workshop had been locked since Gideon Finch's dismissal. Or so everyone believed. He dismissed the footman, then looked toward the opening beneath the broken platform. "Show me what is below." They descended through the maintenance panel together. Cassian went first, carrying a lantern. Ilara followed into the narrow chamber beneath the ballroom. The great wheels had stopped, but the metal still groaned as it settled. Cassian stared at the machinery. "My father never allowed me down here." "Most noblemen prefer not to see what makes their wonders move." "You speak as though you knew him." "I knew what he did to my family." The Duke's shoulders stiffened. "My father believed the evidence against Gideon was undeniable." "Your father wanted the ballroom finished before the winter season. When mine discovered money missing from the construction accounts, he threatened to stop the work. And shortly afterwards, documents appeared showing he had taken it. Documents signed with his name but not his hand." Cassian turned. "You have proof." "I had proof." "What happened to it?" "My father sent the original account book to Helena." Cassian went still. "My wife?" "She came to see us after the accusation. She said she believed him." "Helena never mentioned this." "She was 17. Your father had just selected her as your future bride." "She was frightened." Helena was not easily frightened. "You knew the Duchess. I knew the girl she was before this house taught her silence." Cassian looked away. Ilara regretted the cruelty in the sentence, but not its truth. She approached the damaged locking arm. The missing cog had left a narrow space in the mechanism. Beside it, 2 bolts had been loosened with a metal tool. This was deliberate, she said. Cassian knelt beside her. Could Marcella have done it? Not unless she understood the machine. She could have ordered someone else. Ilara lifted the lantern toward the floor above them. A thin wire ran from the locking arm into the darkness. This is not part of my father's design. She followed the wire behind one of the support columns. It ended at a small brass handle concealed inside the wall. Cassian examined it. What does it do? Ilara pulled the handle. A section of stone moved inward. Behind it was a narrow compartment filled with folded letters, ledgers and sealed wooden boxes. Neither of them spoke. Someone had been using the machinery chamber as a hiding place. Cassian lifted the first ledger. Dust covered the outside, but the pages within were clean. The entries recorded payments made from the Ravensmere estate over nearly 12 years. Most were disguised as construction expenses. Ilara read the names written beside them. Lord Emmett Sallow, Lady Marcella Vane, Mr. Bartram Vale, the former estate steward, and, repeatedly, the late Duke Alistair Ravensmere, Cassian's father. These are not building payments, Ilara said. Cassian turned several pages. They are private transfers. To whom? Judges, land agents, members of parliament. For what purpose? The answer appeared in a letter hidden between 2 pages. Cassian read it silently. The colour left his face. What is it? Ilara asked. He handed her the letter. It had been written by Gideon Finch. Your Grace, I have discovered that the money removed from the construction account was used to purchase farms surrounding Renford Valley through false claims of debt. Families are being expelled so that the land may be transferred to Lord Sallow and Lady Marcella. I will not falsify the final accounts. If these transactions continue, I shall expose every name involved. Ilara read the signature twice. Her father's handwriting was unmistakable. He found them, she whispered. Cassian turned to another page. The payments continued after Gideon's dismissal. His father had not merely permitted the theft, he had participated in it. My father ruined yours to conceal this, Cassian said. Before Ilara could answer, a sound came from the passage behind them. A boot scraped against stone. Cassian raised the lantern. Who is there? No reply came. They followed the passage and found a servant, lying unconscious beside the maintenance door. It was the young footman who had pulled the ceremonial lever. His breathing was steady, but someone had struck him and taken the forged order from his coat. Cassian called for help. When servants carried the footman upstairs, Mrs. Alden came running toward them. Her face was white. Your Grace, Lady Thea is missing. Cassian froze. She was in my study. The door was locked from inside. And the windows, still fastened. Ilara thought of the hidden passage beneath the ballroom. Your study shares a wall with the Western Library. Cassian stared at her. The library has been sealed since Helena died. Then that is where we look. They ran through the entrance hall. At the western corridor, they found the library door already open. Inside, books had been pulled from the shelves. At the centre of the room stood Thea. Beside her was Lady Marcella, no longer wearing ruby. She wore a silver gown and Helena's missing necklace. In one hand, she held a sealed letter. In the other, she held Thea's shoulder. Cassian stopped in the doorway. Release her. Marcella smiled. I knew you would bring Miss Finch. Thea looked frightened but unharmed. Ilara stepped forward. What do you want? To finish what Helena began. You sent the slippers. Yes. You placed the cog beneath Thea's pillow. Yes. You caused the ballroom floor to fail. Marcella's smile faded. No. Cassian's voice sharpened. The footman said you ordered the demonstration. I ordered it early because I needed Ilara beneath the floor before Sallow found the ledgers. You nearly killed my daughter. I did not know Thea would follow me onto the platform. You called her there using her mother's name. I needed her to trust me. Cassian took another step. You used my dead wife to manipulate a child. Marcella looked at him with sudden fury. Your wife is the reason any of us are still alive. The room went silent. Marcella lifted the sealed letter. Helena discovered the truth shortly before her death. She learned your father, Lord Sallow, and my husband had stolen land from dozens of families. She intended to expose them. Why did she not tell me? She tried. Marcella threw the letter across the room. It landed at Cassian's feet. The writing on the front belonged to Helena. For Cassian, when he is finally willing to see his father clearly. Cassian stared at it, but did not pick it up. Marcella's voice softened. She knew you would defend the Ravensmere name before you defended the truth. Ilara looked at him. The accusation had come from two women who had known him best. Cassian bent and lifted the letter. Before he could break the seal, Lord Sallow appeared in the corridor with several estate guards. There she is, he said, pointing at Marcella. She has abducted the child. Marcella drew Thea closer. Sallow turned to Cassian. Do not read that letter. Cassian looked from the sealed message to the magistrate. Why? Because Helena was ill when she wrote it, confused, paranoid. Marcella laughed bitterly. Is that the story you used after her death? Lord Sallow ignored her. Give me the letter, Cassian. The Duke's face became unreadable. Ilara held her breath. Everything depended upon what he chose next. His father's reputation, his family's position, the truth about Helena, the proof that Gideon Finch had died an innocent man. Cassian slowly broke the seal. Lord Sallow ordered the guards forward. Take the letter from him. But the guards did not move. Cassian unfolded Helena's final message. The first line made him close his eyes. My dearest Cassian, if you are reading this, then someone has finally forced you to choose between the honor of your family and the innocence of those it destroyed. Now tell us what you think. Should Cassian expose his own father's crimes and destroy the Ravensmere name, or protect his daughter's inheritance by keeping the truth hidden? Comment your answer below. Lord Sallow repeated the command. Take the letter from him. Still, the estate guards did not move. Their eyes remained fixed on Cassian. The Duke stood beneath the library chandelier, with Helena's final message open in his hands. The paper trembled slightly, though his expression remained controlled. Sallow stepped into the room. Cassian, listen to me. Your wife was grieving. Her health had become unreliable. Whatever she wrote cannot be treated as evidence. Cassian lifted his eyes. You knew about this letter. Sallow stopped. That is not what I said. You told me not to read it before you could know what it contained. Marcella tightened her arm around Thea. The child looked between the adults, frightened by the anger she could not fully understand. Ilara moved closer to her. Let Thea come to me, she told Marcella. Marcella hesitated. You said you wanted the truth exposed, Ilara continued. Do not make the child pay for it. For the first time, shame weakened Marcella's expression. She released Thea. The girl ran immediately to Ilara. Ilara drew her away from the center of the room, while Cassian returned to Helena's letter. He read aloud. My father-in-law believes the Ravensmere title protects every act committed beneath it. Lord Sallow has helped him seize farms through invented debts, while Gideon Finch was blamed for the money used to purchase the magistrate's cooperation. The guards exchanged uneasy looks. Sallow laughed, but the sound lacked confidence. A dead woman's accusations, Cassian continued. Gideon sent me the original accounts. I hid them inside the celestial ballroom because Sallow's men were searching my rooms. Marcella promised to help me reveal them if anything happened to me. Every face turned toward Marcella. Tears filled her eyes. I promised, she whispered, and then I failed. Cassian lowered the letter. How? Marcella looked at Thea before answering. Helena intended to leave Starling Hall with the ledgers. She planned to take them to London, but your father discovered what she was doing. My father was already ill. Not too ill to threaten her. Cassian's face hardened. What happened to my wife? She became frightened for Thea. Your father warned that if Helena disgraced the family, he would have her declared unstable and remove her daughter from her care. Cassian looked as though the room had shifted beneath him. He could not have done that. He controlled the physicians, the magistrate, and half the county. Marcella glanced towards Sallow. He controlled the people who would swear it was necessary. Cassian looked down at the letter again. Helena's next lines were uneven, written with greater urgency. Cassian loves his family, but he has confused love with obedience. He will not believe what his father is capable of until the harm is placed before him. Should I fail, find Ilara Finch. She understands the ballroom, and she will recognize where Gideon concealed the proof. Ilara felt Thea's fingers tighten around hers. Helena had remembered her. After years of silence and separation, she had trusted Ilara with the truth. Sallow took another step toward Cassian. You are humiliating your wife's memory by reading private delusions before servants. Cassian folded the letter carefully. My wife was not delusional. You cannot prove that. The ledgers beneath the ballroom prove it. Ledgers that appeared after Gideon Finch's daughter entered your home. Ilara stared at him. You knew they were there. Sallow's attention moved to her. You have no idea what I know. I know you struck the footman. A flicker crossed his face. Cassian noticed it. Ilara continued. The footman was found beside the western maintenance door. The forged order had been taken from him, but whoever searched his coat left violet wax on his collar. She pointed towards Sallow's sleeve. A dark purple stain marked the edge of his cuff. He instinctively covered it. Marcella gave a breathless laugh. You always believed servants noticed nothing. Sallow's composure finally broke. You foolish woman. I protected you. You protected yourself. Your husband would have died in prison if I had not removed his name from half those documents. My husband deserved prison. Sallow turned to Cassian. Your father understood necessity. Estates do not survive through kindness. Land must be consolidated. Debts must be enforced. Weak families lose what stronger families can use. You stole their homes. We secured Ravensmere's future. You secured payments for yourself. Cassian moved between Sallow and the door. You forged Gideon Finch's signature. Sallow's silence answered him. You destroyed an innocent man, Ilara said. He was offered a chance to remain silent. He refused to help you. He was an engineer who forgot his place. Ilara's anger became so cold that her voice barely rose. My father knew exactly where his place was. It was between men like you and the people you intended to ruin. Sallow signaled to the guards again. Arrest her. No one obeyed. The eldest guard, Captain Rowe, stepped toward Cassian instead. Your Grace, what are your orders? The question changed everything. For years, Cassian had inherited authority without questioning what had built it. Now every person in the library waited to discover whether he would protect the Ravensmere name or tear away the lie beneath it. Cassian looked at Thea. His daughter stood beside Ilara, still wearing her white birthday dress. Black grease marked its hem. One silver ribbon remained in her hair. Then he looked at Helena's letter. My orders are to detain Lord Sallow, he said. Search his home, his office, and every property held in his name. Captain Rowe moved forward. Sallow retreated toward the bookshelves. You would destroy your daughter's inheritance for the accusations of a dead wife and a thief's daughter. Cassian's expression became dangerously calm. No, I am saving my daughter from inheriting what you made of it. The guards approached. Sallow reached behind the curtain and pulled a concealed lever. A heavy iron screen dropped between him and the others. Thea screamed. Sallow disappeared through an opening behind the shelves. Cassian struck the screen with both hands, but it would not rise. "There is another entrance," Ilara said. She remembered the structure of her father's plans. The Western Library stood directly above the old calculating room from which the celestial machinery had once been controlled. Sallow was not escaping toward the gardens. He was going beneath the ballroom. Ilara led them into the corridor and down the servants' staircase. Cassian, Captain Rowe, and 2 guards followed, while Marcella remained with Thea. When they reached the machinery chamber, the wheels had begun turning again. Sallow stood on the opposite platform beside the master controls. "You should have accepted the story your father gave you," he shouted over the grinding gears. Cassian crossed the narrow walkway. "Step away from the mechanism. Do you know what happens when those ledgers reach London? Every family your father paid will deny him. Your tenants will demand restitution. Your creditors will descend upon this estate. Then they will be answered. You will lose everything." "Not everything." Cassian glanced at Ilara. She was already examining the moving gears. Sallow had engaged the celestial floor while servants and investigators still stood above it. The damaged locking arms strained with every turn. "The central support will fail," she warned. "How long?" Cassian asked. "Minutes." Sallow gripped the control lever. "No one receives the ledgers." He pushed the lever forward. The machinery accelerated. Ilara climbed onto the lower platform. Her father's system had been altered, but its original emergency brake remained near the largest counterweight. She could reach it only by crossing between 2 turning wheels. Cassian caught her arm. "That is too dangerous. If the support breaks, the evidence will be buried, and everyone in the ballroom could fall with it. Tell me what to do. You cannot reach the brake from your side. I ordered you out of my home when you were trying to protect my daughter. I will not stand here and watch you risk yourself alone again." Ilara met his eyes. "Then stop, Sallow." She pulled free and stepped onto the narrow beam. Cassian advanced across the walkway. Sallow swung the control bar toward him, forcing him back. Captain Rowe tried to approach from the opposite side, but another iron partition blocked the guards. Ilara moved carefully above the turning mechanism. The beam shook beneath her feet. Below, the counterweight descended. She reached the emergency brake and pulled. Nothing happened. A chain had been wrapped around it. Sallow had prepared for this. "Ilara," Cassian called. "I need the brass cog." Cassian searched his coat. He still carried the broken piece Thea had given Ilara in the ballroom. He threw it across the chamber. Ilara caught it against her chest. The cog did not belong inside the emergency brake, but its 7 narrow teeth fitted perfectly between the chain and the locking plate. Her father had designed one piece to open more than a machine. She pushed it into the gap and twisted. The chain snapped loose. Sallow saw what she had done. "No!" He released the control lever and rushed toward her. Cassian caught him before he reached the beam. The 2 men struggled beside the moving machinery. Sallow's foot slipped over the edge. Cassian seized his wrist. For one suspended moment, the man who had destroyed Gideon Finch hung above the same mechanism he had tried to use to bury the truth. "Let me fall," Sallow gasped. "Then you can blame everything on me and preserve your father's honor." Cassian held him firmly. "No more convenient deaths. You will answer every question publicly." Captain Rowe reached them and pulled Sallow onto the walkway. Ilara dragged the emergency brake downward. The great wheels slowed. One by one, the silver constellations above them stopped moving. Silence filled the chamber. The truth had survived. 3 months later, Lord Emmett Sallow stood before a royal commission in London. The ledgers from beneath the celestial ballroom were accepted as evidence. Properties taken through false debts were returned. Families forced from Renford Valley received compensation from the Ravensmere estate. The late Duke Alistair's statue was removed from the village square. Gideon Finch's conviction was formally overturned. Cassian insisted that the declaration of his innocence be read aloud in the same hall where his disgrace had once been announced. Ilara stood in the front row as her father's name was restored. She did not weep until Thea slipped her hand into hers. Lady Marcella confessed to forging the invitations, stealing Helena's slippers, and drawing Thea toward the Northern Star. Though she had intended to expose the hidden ledgers, she admitted that her plan had endangered the child. Cassian did not excuse her actions, but he did not erase her testimony either. She left Starling Hall to assist the families her husband had helped dispossess. As for the Celestial Ballroom, Cassian ordered it closed. Ilara refused. "The room is not guilty," she told him, "only the people who used it to conceal their crimes." Under her direction, the machinery was repaired, but the Northern Star was changed. Its silver center now carried the names of every family whose land had been restored. At the reopening, Cassian found Ilara standing alone beneath the chandeliers. She wore no borrowed slippers and carried no hidden key. "You were right about me," he said. "Regarding which mistake?" A reluctant smile touched his face. "There are too many to name. That is the first sensible thing you have said." He looked toward Thea, who was explaining the mechanism to a group of village children. "I believed protecting my family meant defending everything attached to its name. And now? Now I believe a name is worth keeping only when its owner is willing to correct what was done beneath it." The musicians began to play. Cassian extended his hand. Ilara looked at it. "Are you asking me to dance in the room from which you once ordered me removed? I am asking the engineer responsible for saving it whether she approves of the repairs." "That is not the same question." "No," he admitted, "it is the safer one." Ilara placed her hand in his. "Then perhaps, Your Grace, you should learn to ask dangerous questions." Above them, the restored stars began to turn. And for the first time in generations, Starling Hall did not move to conceal the truth. It moved to remember it.